Everyone pictures the same thing. A single catastrophic night. Flames devouring priceless scrolls. A bonfire of human knowledge set by some villain, wiping out antiquity's greatest hits. It's a fantastic story. Dramatic, simple, and almost completely wrong. The truth is so much more boring and, therefore, so much more human. First, let's get our terms straight. The Great Library wasn't really a library. Nobody was shushing you for talking too loud. It was part of the Mausion, a research institution, basically a government-funded think tank where the ancient world's biggest brains got free food and board to argue about philosophy and occasionally invent things like, geometry. The scrolls were their research materials, not a public lending collection. Its destruction wasn't a single event, it was a slow, pathetic, centuries-long fade into irrelevance, a death by 1,000 paper cuts. Our first suspect is always Julius Caesar. In 48 BCE, he showed up in Alexandria during a messy civil war. He wasn't there for the books, he was backing Cleopatra in a family squabble and got himself besieged in the palace district. To stop the enemy fleet from boxing him in, Caesar torched his own ships in the harbor, an act of military necessity. Some ancient writers, like Plutarch, mention that this fire spread and burned down some warehouses near the docks. Warehouses that may have contained scrolls intended for the library, or perhaps just ledgers of grain shipments. Nobody at the time wrote, "Caesar burned the great library." They wrote that a fire got out of hand. The main institution, the Mausion itself, was still hosting scholars and operating for another 300 years. So, at worst, Caesar was guilty of accidentally burning an off-site storage unit, not exactly the intellectual apocalypse everyone imagines. A much more effective killer of knowledge than fire is bureaucracy and budget cuts. After Rome took over, the emperor's attitudes toward this expensive Greek think tank varied wildly. Some thought it was great PR, others not so much. Emperor Caracalla, for instance, visited Alexandria in 216 CE. He was apparently offended by the locals, who were known for their sharp wit and had probably made some jokes at his expense. His response was proportional. He massacred a large number of the city's young men. As a fun little bonus, he also expelled all foreign scholars from the Mausion and confiscated their stipends. He didn't burn a single scroll, he just fired everyone. This turned the world's premier research center into a quiet, empty building. Knowledge isn't just stored in books, it lives in the people who read and debate them. Firing the scholars was like ripping the brain out of the skull and expecting the skull to keep having bright ideas. The next major blow came during the crisis of the 3rd century, a period when the Roman Empire was having a prolonged political breakdown. In the 270s CE, Queen Zenobia of Palmyra decided to carve out her own empire, which included conquering Egypt. The Roman Emperor Aurelian, a man not known for his patience, eventually came to take it back. The battle for Alexandria was not a gentle affair. The fighting was fiercest in the Bruchion, the royal quarter of the city. Guess what else was located in the Bruchion? The Mausion. The entire district was described as being so devastated it was turned into a wasteland. This wasn't an attack on knowledge, it was just a regular, run-of-the-mill urban siege. The library complex was likely destroyed the same way any building is destroyed when two armies fight over it. It was collateral damage, a tragic but deeply uncinematic end for the main building. But wait, there's more. After the main Mausian was gone, the intellectual heart of Alexandria moved to the Serapeum. This was a magnificent temple to the god Serapis, and it housed a secondary, daughter collection of scrolls. For a while, this was the new center of learning. Then came the 390 CE. Christianity was now the state religion, and the famously grumpy Emperor Theodosius I issued decrees banning pagan worship. In Alexandria, the local patriarch, Theophilus, saw his chance. He whipped a Christian mob into a frenzy, and in 391 CE, they stormed the Serapeum and utterly demolished the pagan temple. Now this sounds like the story we've been waiting for, the book-burning mob. Except, no contemporary source mentions a great library being destroyed. They mention destroying pagan idols and the temple structure. The scrolls? They were likely long gone, moved, or had rotted from centuries of neglect in a damp climate. The mob destroyed a symbol, not a functioning library. The final, most persistent myth lands in 642 CE with the Muslim conquest of Egypt. The story goes that the conquering general, Amr ibn al-As, asked the Caliph Omar what to do with the books. The Caliph supposedly replied with that perfectly villainous line, "If the books agree with the Quran, they are useless. If they disagree, they are heretical. Burn them." The scrolls were then supposedly used to heat Alexandria's 4,000 bathhouses for 6 months. It's a fantastic story. It's also complete fiction. The first person to write this down was a Christian bishop named Bar Hebraeus, 600 years after the event. It was propaganda, designed to make the conquerors look like barbaric simpletons. There are no Arab or contemporary sources that mention this at all. Blaming a 7th century general for burning books in a library that had already been destroyed, defunded, and neglected into non-existence for 3 centuries is perhaps the greatest testament to how much people prefer a good story over boring reality. So, who destroyed the Library of Alexandria? Nobody. And everybody. It wasn't murdered in a spectacular blaze. It died a slow, quiet death from 1,000 different causes. Budget cuts, civil wars, urban decay, political purges, cultural shifts, and simple, profound neglect. Papyrus doesn't last forever in a humid port city without constant, expensive curation. The shift from papyrus scrolls to parchment codices, what we'd call books, made older formats obsolete. Scholars had to choose what was worth the immense cost of recopying. The Library of Alexandria didn't burn, it dissolved. It faded away because people stopped caring enough to maintain it. The desire for a single villain is comforting, but the truth is far more mundane and unsettling. We didn't lose the knowledge in a single fire, we just misplaced it, got distracted, and eventually forgot where we put it. If you enjoyed this video, please like, comment, and subscribe to our channel for more historical insights. Thanks for watching, nerds!